What if everything you were told about aging after 65 was not just wrong, but dangerously, catastrophically backwards? What if the people living vibrantly into their 80s and 90s, sharp minds, strong bodies, genuine joy, aren't lucky? What if they're not special? What if they simply discovered something that happens in the first 20 minutes of every single morning? Something so simple it sounds fake, but so scientifically validated that ignoring it is genuinely costing people years of their lives. What if your body, right now, today, regardless of your age, is still capable of growing new brain cells, reversing cellular aging, and rebuilding its own cardiovascular system? What if the difference between the 70-year-old who feels finished and the 70-year-old who feels alive comes down to a sequence of behaviors, so accessible, so free, so embarrassingly available to everyone, that when you hear it, your first reaction will be, "That can't possibly be enough"? It is enough. And the science will prove it to you in the next few minutes. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn doesn't just change your morning. It changes the entire trajectory of how long and how well you live. You could live 30 more years. After 65, do this every morning. Let me start with a number that should disturb you. 30. Not 30 days, not 30 weeks. 30 years. If you are 65 years old today, modern biology suggests your body, if treated correctly, has the structural capacity to carry you to 95. Not in a wheelchair, not medicated into numbness, not confused and diminished, but genuinely, functionally, cognitively alive. 30 more years of mornings, 30 more years of conversations that matter, 30 more years of being present for people who need you, and almost nobody is claiming that territory. Why? Not because medicine failed them, not because genetics condemned them, but because of what they do, or more precisely, what they fail to do, in the first hour after they open their eyes. I want to walk you through something, not advice, not motivation, something far more interesting than that. I want to show you the actual physics of aging. Because here's what most people fundamentally misunderstand. Aging is not a clock, it is a feedback system. Your body is not counting down to zero. It is constantly, every single morning, asking a question, and the answer you give it with your first behaviors determines whether it moves toward deterioration or toward repair. The question your biology asks every morning is simple. Are we in danger or are we thriving? That's it. Billions of years of evolution, and it comes down to that one question. And your morning routine is the answer you submit. Here's where it becomes genuinely alarming. When you wake up and immediately reach for your phone, your nervous system reads that as threat. The rapid information, the blue light, the social comparison, the news anxiety, cortisol spikes in an abnormal pattern. Not the healthy morning cortisol peak that gives you energy and motivation. An erratic inflammatory spike. Your immune system receives a stress signal. Your cardiovascular system tightens, your digestive system shuts partially down, and you haven't even gotten out of bed. You have already, in the first 4 minutes of consciousness, given your body a catastrophically wrong instruction. Now multiply that by 365 days. Now multiply it by 10 years. You have spent 3,650 mornings telling your biology the world is dangerous, the body is under siege, and aging is accelerating, and your biology, which is extraordinarily obedient, complied perfectly. But let me show you the other direction. Imagine instead that you wake up and before you touch any device, before you consume any information from the outside world, you spend 60 seconds doing something almost embarrassingly simple. You breathe deliberately, 4 counts in, hold for 4, 6 counts out. This single act, which takes less time than it takes to read a single news headline, activates your vagus nerve. It shifts your autonomic nervous system from sympathetic dominance to parasympathetic. Your heart rate variability improves. Your inflammatory markers drop. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for judgment, planning, and emotional regulation, comes online properly. You have just, in 60 seconds, given your body the answer, "We are safe, we can grow." Now you put on your shoes, you walk outside, you don't need a gym, you don't need equipment, you don't need youth, you need outdoor light and forward motion. Within 7 minutes of morning sunlight hitting your eyes, not your skin, your eyes, your suprachiasmatic nucleus receives the timing signal it needs to regulate your entire hormonal architecture for the next 24 hours. Serotonin begins converting, melatonin production is calibrated for tonight's sleep, cortisol peaks properly and then descends on schedule. Your circadian clock, which controls everything from immune function to DNA repair, synchronizes. You are, in this moment, running the most sophisticated biological software ever written, and you just gave it accurate data. Continue walking. 20 minutes, moderate pace, enough that you could hold a conversation but not sing comfortably. This is Zone 2 cardio. And in this zone, something extraordinary happens in your brain. Your hippocampus, the structure most vulnerable to aging, most devastated by Alzheimer's, begins releasing BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the compound that triggers neurogenesis, new neurons, actual new brain cells, growing in a 70-year-old brain, growing in an 80-year-old brain. The research proves it. Volume increases, memory sharpens, processing accelerates. Your brain, which culture told you was finished, is rebuilding itself while you walk every morning for free. Now here is the part that most people miss entirely, and missing it is costing them years. When you return from that walk, before you eat, before you shower, sit somewhere quietly and ask yourself one question. What am I genuinely curious about today? Not, what do I have to do? Not, what am I worried about? Curiosity, pure childlike intellectual curiosity. This is not philosophy. This is neuroscience. A brain in a state of curiosity releases dopamine, not the cheap dopamine of social media notifications, but the deep, sustained dopamine of engaged learning. This dopamine signature protects the prefrontal cortex. It creates new synaptic connections. It is neurologically indistinguishable from the brain state of someone decades younger. People who remain curious, who keep asking questions about the world, who learn new things, who engage with ideas, show measurably slower cognitive decline. Not slightly slower, dramatically slower. Some studies suggest up to 40% reduction in dementia risk from sustained cognitive engagement alone. Curiosity is a biological preservation mechanism, and we are telling our elders to retire quietly and watch television. The damage of that advice cannot be overstated. Now let's talk about the one variable that surprises people most: connection. Not the digital kind, the real kind. Voice, eyes, presence, your immune system, specifically the cells that fight cancer, that clear cellular debris, that manage inflammation, is directly regulated by your social biology. Loneliness doesn't just feel bad, it creates measurable biological damage at the molecular level. Inflammatory cytokines increase, telomeres shorten faster. The cardiovascular system operates under chronic low-grade stress, but 5 minutes of genuine morning connection, a real conversation, a shared laugh, eye contact with another human being who sees you, activates your vagal system, drops inflammation, stabilizes immune function, and releases oxytocin, which is one of the most powerful cellular repair signals your body produces. 5 minutes, every morning. That's the dose. And then, and this is perhaps the most important thing I will say, eat. But eat after movement, eat after light, eat after connection. Because when you eat in that sequence, your metabolic response is measurably different. Insulin sensitivity is higher. Mitochondrial efficiency is better. Your cells absorb nutrients more completely. The order of your morning matters as much as the components. So let me give you the architecture, not as rules, as physics. Wake. Breathe deliberately. Go outside into morning light. Move for 20 minutes. Ask yourself what you're curious about. Connect with one human being genuinely. Then eat. That sequence, that specific sequence, addresses telomere preservation, neurogenesis, hormonal regulation, immune function, cardiovascular health, cognitive preservation, and psychological well-being simultaneously. It costs nothing. It requires no prescription. It demands no special equipment. It is available to you tomorrow morning. The question, the only question, is whether you believe your next 30 years are worth 20 minutes of deliberate living. Because here is the truth that took scientists decades to fully accept and that most people will spend their entire lives never discovering. Your body does not know how old you are. It only knows what signals you send it. Every morning is a new set of instructions. Every morning is a vote, cast in behavior, not in intention, for the version of yourself that will exist at 75, at 80, at 90. The people who live vibrantly into their 90s are not lucky. They are not genetically exceptional. They are, almost universally, people who learned, consciously or intuitively, how to send their bodies the right signal before the rest of the world got a chance to send the wrong one. The morning belongs to you before it belongs to anyone else. Claim it. 30 years is waiting. Here is what we have discovered together. You are not in decline. You are in a feedback loop, and feedback loops can be redirected. The science is unambiguous. The morning is not merely the beginning of your day. It is the biological programming session that determines the quality of every cell, every thought, every heartbeat that follows. Light regulates your hormones. Movement rebuilds your brain. Breath controls your nervous system. Curiosity preserves your cognition. Connection heals your immune system. And the story you tell yourself the moment you wake up is either medicine or poison, and it starts working immediately. 30 years is not a fantasy. It is a biological possibility sitting inside every person over 65 who is willing to exchange 4 minutes of phone scrolling for 4 minutes of deliberate living. The greatest tragedy in modern aging is not disease. It is the staggering number of people who had 30 more extraordinary years available to them and spent them waiting to feel ready. You will not feel ready. Do it anyway. Tomorrow morning, before the world tells you who you are, step outside. Let the light find your eyes. Let your legs move. Let your lungs work deliberately. Ask one question you genuinely don't know the answer to. Say something real to someone who matters. That is not a morning routine. That is a declaration that your life, this specific, unrepeatable, still unfinished life, is worth the next 30 years of your complete attention. The clock is not your enemy. The morning is your ally. Use it.